Okay, let's do this. What is up, YouTube? I am Taylor. Welcome back to my channel, and this is my review of Black Science, Volume 1, The Beginner's Guide to Entropy by Rick Remender and Matteo Scalera, with the majority of the coloring done by Dean White, and then Maurino Denizio doing the coloring on some of the later issues in here. This collects 1 through 16, issues 1 through 16 of the original volumes of the book, and there's 2 other omnibi, about this size that I did not pick up, but I got this at one of my local comic shops, Powers Comics in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Shout out, because I had a great Small Business Saturday deal where all their graphic novels were 50% off, so got this for $25, which is not bad considering how beefy it is. And yeah, I'm not giving this one away. Sorry, I'm keeping this one because I dig it, and that's... Yes, I know there's tends to be. I keep the books I like. It's a very bizarre concept. And then I pawn off all the crap I don't, and you get it in the mail. So, yeah. But this is, like I said, Black Science. It follows the story of Grant McKay and his family. A little bit of spoilers from here on out. Spoilers. And the Anarchistic League of Scientists. Not really. He's just a member of this, which is not really a league. They don't even really discuss things. And the league is basically his family and a couple other people. And it sort of follows the tradition of, like, Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four or the Lost in Space crew, where, like, the reckless scientist does something. And then, like, there's a journey to go get home, and they're... changes everything and affects the universe and all that kind of stuff. Updates it, like a lot of 50s sci-fi stuff here that gets a bit updated for the modern era with some fun concepts, some science gibberish, and some wackiness and adventures that ensue. Yeah, basically, Grant has this thing he creates called the Pillar, which lets him poke holes through dimensions, and they can travel to other dimensions. And then that gets sabotaged right away once they do the first jump, because, of course, by somebody. I have to figure out who. I'm not going to spoil that, but it's in there. And then they can't get home, so they find themselves jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping. And consequences. So, yeah, it is kind of like science tropey in that regards. It's a lot of fun. Matteo Scalera's art is very kinetic, very active, and very just fun art style. Kind of cartoony. Kind of in places with some realism, exaggerated facial features, several splash pages and double splash pages, but not overused, and fairly mostly traditional panel layouts as you go. And there's a few cross spread pages, which I never like, or cross panels, but your eye really doesn't usually have a problem figuring out which direction to go. The lettering, I don't know who did the lettering on here. Let me see if I can figure that out real quick while I'm recording this video, folks, because I don't research, I don't plan, I don't do this stuff. Lettering, Russ Wooten. Okay, Russ Wooten did the lettering. The lettering's great. I don't have any issues at all with it. It's easy to read, it fits the story, there's great sound effect lettering and stuff like that, and yeah, it just works, which is what you want in lettering. You don't want to, and I just hit the mic because I really am an amateur at this stuff. You don't want the lettering to stand out and be noticeable. The coloring, Dean White does some heavy lifting on some of the coloring here. And I like his coloring better than the other guy that does it later on, but I mean, some of the coloring is just fantastic and bright and vivid, and you really get the sense you're in these strange sci-fi fantasy worlds, which this book is set in. As far as the plot goes, it is breakneck pace throughout. These first 16 issues, there's never any, like, Remender doesn't, or Remender, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, doesn't give you any moments to breathe or for the characters to calm down. Like, they're always in peril, they're always trying to get home, they're always pushing, and there's consequences to their actions that have ripple effects throughout the universes and our dimensions, and they have to deal with all that, and it's just kind of like dominoes that once the first domino falls, they all just start falling. There's not ever a break in the action. And honestly, I enjoyed it. It was great. It makes for a fast-paced read, but I do kind of wish that maybe there was like a filler issue, and I don't normally say that, but like I kind of wish there was a bit of like downtime for like at least a little bit in the story for the characters. I mean, they're always in peril and they're always running, which is great. And it's not like the way it happens is not repetitive. Repetitive words are hard, people, and it makes sense. but it just would have been nice to have a little bit of like. And maybe that happens in the later issues. This is not the complete series. This is, like I said, this is the first 16 issues collected, and then there's a cover gallery with variant covers in the back and some character designs, some coloring tests and stuff. It's not a crazy amount of extra material, but it is pretty nice stuff. Like you get black and white inks and stuff on some of these pages, and then when you go back and look, you realize just exactly how much the coloring adds to it, and like how much they let Dean White kind of have fun and play around with some of these colors. And like you see his color tests where he's figuring out the uniforms and the stuff, and that also is a lot of fun. But yeah, as far as back to the story for a bit, it's, there's curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal by characters. There's shifting motivations. There's you find out that Grant McKay is not necessarily a nice guy, and he's on the road to redemption, but he still messes up while he's on this road to fix things because he's just not like he's a flawed hero, which is good. And it makes for a more interesting story, I think. If I had any issues other than like that, I would like a little bit of breathing issue. And while I love Scalera's art, like Matteo Scalera is one of my favorite working comic artists. He's dynamic. He's got these exaggerated facial expressions that really work, and he does have a great sense of space and layout. And his sci-fi stuff is especially fun. I did have trouble once in a while telling apart some of the female characters. They all kind of look a bit alike, and it's like relying on the dialogue and stuff to try and figure out who is who, and that once in a while, because there's a daughter, there's a mother, there's various iterations of these characters that they come across in different dimensions and stuff, and like the mother and this woman named Jennifer also, they just kind of look alike, and it makes it a little bit tricky to figure out what's going on sometimes in that regard. And then also there's a lot of internal monologuing, depending on which character is being focused on in the issue or the parts of the issue, which I don't have a problem with. I think it helps. It gets you, you learn to motivate. Like, it's a good storytelling technique, and you learn it helps you learn the motivations behind the characters, and they all do have their own motivations and stuff. But some of the children characters just don't feel like children when they're monologuing. They just, there's not a sense of like, the son's 11 or whatever, 10 or 11. It just doesn't feel that way when that character's monologuing, and then the daughter also doesn't feel very young in the monologue. It's a small complaint. It's not deal breaking, and I think there is enough interest in this, and I think that if you're into this kind of like sci-fi wackiness and like that kind of retro story-ish updated with swear words and stuff, people, then this is going to be a great book for you. I'm looking forward to figuring out how it ends. I probably should have bought all 3 volumes while I was there, but I'd never read it, and so I wanted to like test the waters. And $10 to $25 is not the cheapest way to test the waters, but it was better than 50. So I'm going to hunt down the other 2 volumes of this at some point, and I'll probably do a complete series review when it's all said and done. But yeah, I really, really, really did like this, and I know I get ragged on for picking books I don't like and stuff sometimes, and some of that is just I have a stack of books to get through, and I just kind of pull from the stack and read. But when I'm choosing books, I do try and pick out books that I think I'm going to like, because, well, I like to read what I like, and I like liking what I read. Yeah, that makes sort of sense, right? Kinda ish. But yeah, if you Grant McKay, anarchistic League of Scientists, sets the universe in danger by punching through dimensions, and then they run across other variations of themselves, also punching through dimensions. Everyone's after this thing called the Pillar, even though it's broken, because it is a lot of power and stuff, and they're just trying to get home. Mostly. There's other motivation stuff going on, and as this progresses, they start to see consequences of what they're doing, and so like their motivations do shift a bit. They're still trying to get home, but they're also now trying to fix everything they've done to mess it all up, which doesn't always work, because that's not how this book is set up. And like the coloring by the second colorist and stuff is fine towards the end. It's just not quite as dynamic as when Dean White's on it. And I hope Dean White comes back for later issues. I'm not sure if that's the case. I haven't looked. But even if not, it's not a deal breaker. It's just like Dean's coloring is something special, and the other colorist is still doing a great job, but it doesn't match the dynamism and the explosiveness of the coloring. Which, again, I don't know a lot of books that focus on the coloring, and it wasn't. I wasn't even thinking I was going to talk about it much until I just noticed and started flipping back through it and realized how gorgeous the coloring was in the first chunk of the book. And while it is, like I said, it is good in the second half, it's just not not as great, in my oh so humble opinion. So that's kind of about it. I think this is a little bit of a shorter video, but that's okay because, you know, it's the holidays. Who's got time to watch this kind of nonsense? You gotta go consume things and buy things off of TaylorRemender.com, like fully microchipped hats and t-shirts that say "Don't be a dick." Stuff like that. You know, your kids will love it. All right, I'm getting out of here. Thank you so much for watching, as always. And, you know, also, as always, don't be a dick, even if you're traveling through various dimensions and can't find your way home. Just, you know, don't be a dick about it. See ya.